Welcome and thank you for joining the Tahoe Regional Young Professionals 2016 Candidate Interview Series for the City of South Lake Tahoe. So TRYP is a politically neutral organization and we do not endorse candidates or ballot measures. However, this video series is produced to prepare our community to make an informed vote on November 8th. So each of the 10 City Council candidates today will have 10 minutes to answer 3 questions which they've received in advance. They'll also answer one free-form question from me. We're here with Danny McLaughlin. Thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So let's just get right to it, shall we? Danny, what are your goals for the city and how will it look in the next 5 years?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked that. I got a lot of things that I'd like to see happen. First off, I would like to see the city of South Lake Tahoe, as a general rule, having a more diverse economy with an increase in higher paying high-tech jobs and less dependency on tourism. I think we can build our economy in other ways. A community that's senior friendly with numerous recreational opportunities, affordable houses, a solid infrastructure, and a quality school system that makes this a great place to raise a family. I'd also like to see more recreational opportunities for both the residents and our visitors, including in that more bike paths, more walking paths, more ways for people to get around and do things. I'd like to see a really good public transportation system so that we don't have to rely on our cars as much, so that there are other ways to get around town when we go out. We don't have to worry about taking a car and parking and driving home after, partying with our friends. Mm-hmm. And then the biggest part that I also see is I think we need to look at, we've got a redevelopment we've done at one end of town. We've neglected the rest of the town. We need to spend some time also taking care of the rest of the city so it can be looking pretty sharp.
Excellent. Wow, that's quite a list. So I heard affordable housing,
yes,
senior
yes,
care, recreation,
yes,
transportation.
Yes.
Do you think that that's a realistic 5-year plan, or at least to get those projects started?
Absolutely it is. Remember, I was the chairman of Parks and Rec when Measure S was passed.
Measure S was?
The one that built the ice rink, the field at the college, did put some money in the redevelopment of Tahoe Paradise Park, and guaranteed bike paths, some funding of bike paths within the city limits. It's gone a long ways to help our city. These are things that have been discussed back then, and we were able to get things done. I think if we look at them, we can get them done because many of these things are already on the table. Affordable housing is a huge topic right now. Tahoe Transportation District, it's got a lot of projects that they're working on. We are in the business of recreation. This is who South Lake Tahoe is, so we need to look at recreation as one of our most important components. So these are all things that are here. Plus, I talk about the schools. We've already stepped up and we've got one of the nicest school systems you're going to find anywhere with a state-of-the-art high school. These things are in place. We need to make sure we're moving forward with all of these projects to create that kind of a community.
Wonderful. So let's come back to affordable housing, which is definitely a topic that's had much discussion. So Danny, what are some concrete actions that the city can take to provide more housing affordability in South Lake Tahoe? Again, what are the concrete actions?
Well, you were there when we had that little forum up at the beach retreat, and I remember Sue Novosel.
Trip hosted it.
Yeah, there you go. Sue Novosel, who's the county supervisor, suggested we put a task force together where we start looking at communities like ours around the nation and how have they dealt with it. That's a great idea. The city cannot solve affordable housing by itself. Nobody can. They do have an agency already in place that they take care of it with. It's a but that's not going to get the job done. What's going to get the job done is a partnership between all the government agencies and the private sectors that come up with plans. We need to make it so that if a developer wants to build a shopping mall or affordable housing, create an incentive program so they build affordable housing. That's not in place now. It's too expensive. We don't have the parcels big enough to build enough properties that a developer can build enough affordable houses to pay for his building costs. That needs to change. We need to get incentives so you can put together projects that are affordable and fit into the topography of our area. It's a huge problem. If we don't do something about it, every business person I talk to right now says the same thing. It's hard to hang on to employees. Really? Just wait 5 years. If the housing continues like it is, how do you think you're going to get anybody to work these jobs when they're not even living here and they got to get them up in the valley or wherever else? It's a huge problem.
Yeah, absolutely. One that sends ripples through our community. So that's something that sounds like can and should be put on that 5-year plan, expedited.
Without a doubt, it bothers me. About a month ago, there was an article in the Tribune, and a woman on the cover of the Tribune page, and the title was, "Is this the face of affordable housing?" That was my mother-in-law.
Oh my goodness.
My mother-in-law built her home in 1980, raised her family, had 2 husbands, unfortunately both passed away, worked at Barton, worked various jobs, part of the Barton Auxiliary, and when her last husband passed away, she had to move off the hill because she can find no place to live. I'm sorry, that's wrong. It's very personal to me, affordable housing. Very personal.
I can definitely sense your passion there. So let's move on to another question. With the known impacts of climate change that we'll have on Lake Tahoe, does the city have a responsibility to implement policies to address this issue?
Well, yeah, of course they do. I mean, but first off, let's be real. The city can't solve the problem of climate change up here. But what we can do is make sure that we're always aware that environmental concerns got to be at the top of every single project that's done, and all of the things we're talking about. We need to get more greenhouses. We need to make things more efficient. You know, Liberty Energy, for example, is coming into homes and changing out the light bulbs into the new LED ones. That's the kind of stuff we need to get our footprint smaller. That's all we can do, is make our footprint smaller in this community. That would help it, but it's still going to be dependent on the rest of the world taking care of the problem as well. But
Right.
I do believe we have to do our part in making sure that we are a very green conscious community, without a doubt.
Yeah, a global issue with serious local impacts.
Yeah, most definitely it is. Now, we've done an awful lot, you know, with some of the building of the, adding the Delaware vaults that's filtering some of the water into the lake, and the retaining ponds and things like that. These are all absolute positives towards keeping Lake Tahoe clean. But as we found out from that last summit when President Obama was here, the effects of global warming is actually having a negative effect on our lake, one that we can't see right now, but the scientists are looking at it saying, hey, we got a problem.
Yeah, you mentioned Liberty Utilities changing, consumer light bulbs, going to LEDs and more efficient bulbs. Considering the majority of Liberty Utilities energy coming from coal, do you think that'll be something that'll be addressed by consumers and the city?
Yeah, at some point, coal is very inefficient. There's no question we need better forms of generating electricity. And the technology, we need to continually invest in that type of technology to make wind power, to make thermal power and other things far more cheap, less cumbersome than they are right now. And that is definitely the way the future has to be. That we don't have any choice. We're going to run out of coal at some point. So we got to come up with another plan. Don't put your head in the sand and say, well, just keep doing it and don't worry. No, you got to address that problem and come up with better ways and better solutions. They're here. We just don't always want to use them.
Great. All right, well, let's go into our free-form question for you today, Danny. As you're a businessman and one that works on both sides of the state line here, as someone working at local businesses that serves both sides of the state line of South Shore, do you think that it's possible for this area to set aside that California, Nevada, us versus them mentality and have both sides work together?
Yes, because I've done it. When I did softball tournaments up here, we did tournaments the same week in both California and Nevada, and we got both sides to cooperate completely in making the things work. Both agencies, the Recreation Department for Douglas County and the City of South Lake Tahoe, talked. We got the plans in place and made it happen. It can happen. There is always an element of us versus them on both sides of the lake, but walk across the aisle and talk to them straightforward. I have great relationships with people over in the Douglas County because of all the time I've spent over there to work with problems like this, so this isn't going to be an issue. I think we can work together, and the reality is we have to work together because the state line is just put together by politicians. Those of us that live here, we don't pay attention to the state line. It's just something we know it's there. It's one big community. We have to start thinking that way.
One South Shore.
one South Shore.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate your time and insight today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And for all of you tuning in, please stay tuned to our Facebook page, Tahoe Regional Young Professionals, as well as our website, Tahoe TRYP, TRYP.org, to view all of the candidate interviews in this series. And don't forget to register and vote November 8th.